Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second episode of Visioncon Spotlight, your in-depth look at the nerds you love. I'm your host, Zach Wilson, but you didn't come here to see me today. You came to see the man of the hour. He's filmmaker, actor, cosplayer, craftsman. The list goes on. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome my friend and mentor, Holman. Hawk, how you doing today?
That's okay. That's one of the best introductions I've ever had. You can introduce me from now on, my friend.
I'll be sure to, Hawk. Now, Hawk, I did want to start things out. You know, we've known each other a long time. Some would say too long. But for the folks watching at home, I just got to ask, you know, was this always the plan growing up, being this tour de force? Or was it just kind of one thing after another growing up that kind of got you to where you were today?
You know, ironically, I made a joke about, my dad made a joke about that with me not that long ago. A lot of what I wanted to do growing up didn't exist. I mean, you know, I was a closeted nerd like most people. And so, you know, I bounced around most of my life until I found myself. And I found a lot of the community, the Visioncon community. I was a closeted nerd literally until I found Visioncon.
That's high praise.
It was I mean, growing up in Chicago, being a nerd was just not a thing that people admitted to.
So just growing up, did you do like any of, you know, filmmaking, you know, acting, you know, any of that? Or was this just way later in life?
Nothing. Not a thing. It was way, 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 way later in life. Not a thing.
So then I guess the next thing begs the question then how such later in life did you just go off swinging in these fields? Because from my perspective, you know, seeing you act, seeing the things you've directed, being part of a lot of the things that you've put together, you know, you don't have to forgive me if, you know, I, as well as many other people, would just assume that you've been doing this all your life. So kind of where does that success and just kind of natural skill come from?
Ironically, is surrounding yourself with the right people has always been the thing. Okay. And I think even you can attest to this. Sometimes making things look easy is just simply a matter of having the right people around you. Mm-hmm. Being a part of the Ultimate Cosplay League, they do most of the work and I show up. You know, picking costumes and portraying those characters publicly. It's about picking the costumes that you love playing. You know, I love Nick Fury. He's one of my favorite costumes to wear because he's easy. And I think you've been present for some of my best Nick Fury moments. And I didn't plan them; they just happened around me.
I mean, one in particular you had me in a headlock for. So yes, I remember that one quite vividly.
That was one of my favorites, actually.
I'm sure. Well, there was one thing that you do that I intentionally omitted from the intro, because a lot of people who know you, Hawk, know you from your very successful and very entertaining podcast, Fanatics and the Fan, which is the next thing I kind of wanted to talk to you about. Kind of, what's the story behind Fanatics and the Fan? You know, that's been a very long-arching series and, you know, something that have, you know, you well known in the community, both locally and, you know, nationally. So kind of where'd the name come from, kind of where the idea come from, and just, you know, any funny stories along the way?
The idea, ironically, happened at a con.
Okay.
Me and several of my nerd friends were sitting around talking. I'm not even sure what we were talking about. I wish I could remember exactly the topic. But a lot of the questions that I asked during Fanatics and the Fan came from that initial conversation, because we were sitting around at a convention. I'm almost positive it was Visioncon. And we stood still in the same place for several hours having this nerd conversation. And I realized we did it every convention we were at. Every time we got together, we did this exact same thing. And I finally said to myself, why are we not recording this? Because people would wander in and out of conversations. People would stand there amazed at the conversation we were having, in awe, just stand there and watch. Why are we not recording this? You know, why is this not a YouTube channel? And that's what we did. That's how it started. That's what we did. And it's been, it has progressed into what it is today because of that. I've met some amazing people. I always determined that I was going to have and fluctuating, ever-changing cast and crew, and I love that because the name came because of who I am. I love everything about being a nerd. Visioncon introduced me to anime, but I'm not an anime fanatic. Visioncon introduced me to roleplay, but I am not a huge. I can't DM a D&D game because I'm not, that fanatical about it. I love television. I could be considered a TV fanatic, but I can't tell you the names of most actors. Same with movies. I love movies. I can name off about 6 directors. Couldn't tell you all of their movies because I'm not a fanatic about it. And that's how the name came up. I was like, I'm mostly just a fan of all of these things. Whereas some of my cast and crew, like Brandon Shane or yourself or even Raylene, you guys are full-on fanatic and can quote me stuff that I didn't even know existed. So that's where the name came from.
And so just kind of getting the way that it's kind of interesting that you bring up Nick Fury that you cosplay, because a lot of ways that you have assembled fanatics in the fan is a lot like how Nick Fury has, kind of the Avengers Order, however they call that, Avengers Protocol, something like that. But like you go to these people and, you find out their skill sets, you mentioned a few, and you just kind of recruit them, and it has become a podcast and a show that is just all-encompassing, very welcoming, very inclusive, and not at all exclusive. And it's just really turned into something that I speak for myself, both, as a fan and as a part of it, but I've on record many people who just really look forward to every episode of this show. And for those of you watching this later on YouTube, that link, as far as a bunch of other links that we're going to get into momentarily, are all going to be down in the description below. But the next thing I wanted to talk to you about is I mentioned filmmaker and actor. Now, I'm going to be honest with you about something, and I'm going to actually rewind a little bit to the podcast as well. Because when I first met you, and you mentioned you did all this, in the back recesses of my mind, I was like, yeah, sure, anybody can say they're an actor or whatever.
Yeah, exactly, and that happens.
Exactly. But then my come to light moment was when you invited me on, an episode, I believe it was the Halloween episode of Fanatics and Fan. So I was like, yeah, sure, because, I've always wanted to be, a personality on the internet and, be in a podcast. So I was like, yeah, sure. But I wasn't really thinking, much of it. If anything, I was thinking I was going to be the star. I was going to bring fresh light to. So I get to the set, Raylene, my girlfriend, on my left, you on my right, and you start it, and all of a sudden, you just come to life. Of the party. And I'm like, oh, because I was wearing my fake, and you might even be able to see it in that video, but I was kind of wearing my fake smile, like, yeah, sure. But then when you saw the life, all right, let's do this. And so I got to say, it's a theme with you, because you're not a person who should be underestimated, because whatever you do, be it cosplay, acting, filmmaking, podcasting, you just knock it out of the park. So, which brings me to what I'm actually going to say to you. So recently, you guys filmed a Sato 48, contending movie.
Yes.
I gotta be honest. I was ready to give you just like, like a pity laugh, just because you're my friend and mentor, like I mentioned earlier. But oh my God, is it funny? You want to talk a little bit about that?
What's ironic about that? My crew, Amigos Barro, we had discussed doing a lot of different projects. We crush drama out of the park because drama is actually easy. Comedy, there was a long argument about whether we're going to do comedy this year because what everybody else thinks is funny, I don't. And comedy, and that's with everyone. So when my director, Tom, comes to me and says, this is what we're going to do, or this is what we should do, or should we do this? And I honestly fall back into the Hawk fan character and go with the flow, and I put all of my pawns out front and make, to make the whole team shine. And when we're done, and I leave the set, and I'm like, wow, that was amazing. That was funny. And it's funny. The entire time I'm on set, I didn't even realize that I was doing other things on set. Like I was doing a Zoom meeting. I was planning a Fanatics and a Fan episode. I was doing everything but focusing on the work that we were doing at that moment. And then the director says action, and Steven was one of the best things about that for me. I loved my role. I hope everybody appreciated what I did, but Steven was great because I had forgotten. This is how little I was paying attention. I had forgotten that we had determined that Steven was going to have a speech impediment. So he goes and starts his lines, and I'm like, oh, man, come on. How could you be free? I'm offline, just screaming in my head. Get it together, Steven. Hurry up, say your damn lines. Get it together. And then I watched it later. I remembered about an hour into this that he was doing this shit on purpose. And I'm like, holy crap. That's amazing. You are awesome. And the finished product, the initial idea was, let's appreciate the situation that we're in right now, as well as skirt the rules, because everything we did was in that, that gray area between don't do this and do this. Well, there was a line of rules we had, and we were in the gray area of everything they told us not to do, we did without actually doing it. And that was, to me, the best part of it, was because I'm not a huge rule breaker. I try to stay well within the letter of the law. So to spend all my time in the gray area was amazing to me. It was fun. It was one of the funnest things I've ever done.
Well, and it definitely showed that you guys were having fun with it. And it's interesting you bring up the speech impediment that Steven's character had, because, when I was first watching it, like in the back of my mind, when he first started doing it, I was like, did he mess up and you guys just kept it in? And the next thing that drew on my mind was like, wait a minute. Has Steven always had a speech impediment and I'm noticing? But then I was like, oh, wait a minute, this is part of his character. And I'm like, Steven. And, I guess that's part of what you said earlier, where you got to surround yourself with very talented people, that fully, shows off your own talents as well. The next thing I kind of wanted to talk to you about, though, is something you mentioned later is that, kind of growing up, you didn't really get into all of this, until, later,
right.
It just wasn't a thing where you came from. Now, I'm sure there was a lot of regrets and a lot of things that were negative about that, but I do wonder, was there anything positive about that or anything? Nope, not at all.
So, without aging myself or outing myself here, I was the loneliest nerd on the planet for most of my life. And so finding this community was a godsend, not gonna lie. Every time I wake up and get on social media and see what my nerd friends are doing, it's a great day. I honestly consider my life before encountering this community is my BC life, before, that's before, and everything else after that is just my life. And I will tell you, to me, it's one of the funniest stories ever. My very, very first Visioncon, I was not actually in attendance. It was at the Holiday Inn. It was that infamous convention. For you old school folks, you know what I'm talking about. And me and some of my friends had decided the bar at the Holiday Inn, we decided to get together and have some drinks at the bar at the Holiday Inn, which for me was, why are we not at a bar? But, I did it. And we're sitting there. We're there for like 2 hours. I'm like, I thought there was supposed to be some sort of convention happening right now all around me. And there was supposed to be a vampire game. I did never even experienced Vampire the Masquerade before. And it was supposed to be happening all around me. I'm like, I don't see anything happening. And my friend's like, oh yeah, it's happening right now all around you. I'm like, I see nothing. Nothing. So a friend of mine who was an experienced role player says, well, you're just not looking hard enough. And so then they start pointing at things, and I'm still not seeing it. So I say to myself, as they're explaining to me what a vampire game really is like, we're just having drinks, and I'm talking to women and having a great time. And I take out my EMT badge out of my wallet and put it on my belt. Oh, that lasted literally 30 minutes. I apparently destroyed the actual vampire game that was happening by doing that.
Really?
It caused so many problems. Half the vampires that were, half of the city that had been built, the people that were in charge, nobody knew what to do because I'm sitting there in the bar with this badge on. Finally, the DM of the game comes down. His name was Rob. He comes down. He's like, "Are you in the game?" I'm like, "No, I was just messing with you." He's like, "Can I kind of put you in the game because you ruined my game? Now, can we do something with you?" So he has made a character sheet for me long before he had this conversation, which I consider that was ballsy to just do that. He had the sheet, so now I'm in the game full on, and you guys couldn't get rid of me since. Like the following year, I was on staff for Visioncon, and I've been a part of this community ever since.
And you actually, both as a staff, but also, a figurehead in the community, but you also have created a haven for those community members in the form of Geekmas. So
yes.
Geekmas, as the name kind of implies, it's around Christmas time, it's a convention, it's like Visioncon, but there is a big, it's a very inclusive and a very, just kind of like a family-oriented part of it. Like, it's very welcoming atmosphere. It's very it's got a little bit of everything, similar to Visioncon as well. But just like the fact that I don't know if it's because it's around the holidays or what, but there's just something warm about Geekmas. So was that the plan when you first started Geekmas, or is it kind of?
Yes, it was. So the irony of Geekmas was there was a gap, a ginormous gap from our last convention of the year to Visioncon. And I was, again, this was a Fanatics and the Fan meeting. We were actually at a convention doing a Fanatics and the Fan, and I said, somebody made the comment that some of these people we only see at conventions, which is, you know what that's like. Some of these people, even though this is a community, some of those people, like David Fought or Brew from Crazy Costumes, you only see at conventions for whatever reason, because they have their everyday life. And I was like, all right, we got to fix that. And I love Christmas. Christmas is my favorite holiday for a multitude of reasons. It was my favorite time of the year as a kid, my favorite time of the year as an adult. And I said, why don't we have something in between there? Sure. And the mentality was, do it the right way. It's something I've never actually done. I don't do things the right way. I do them my way. Yeah. And so doing Geekmas, starting out small and building up, adding to my players was just the thing. And it has been this last year with your help, the things that we've did last year. I'll be honest with you, and I think you were witness to this. Last year was one of the. I've never been that person to ever be out of character in public, and we did a thing that pulled me out of character. There were tears flowing, but it was a good time. Yeah. It was a good time, and everybody that showed up had a great time.
Yeah, no, it was a very humanizing part of you that I was able to witness that. But yeah, no, everybody across the board. Usually with these big events, you can't please everyone, but
right.
You proved that wrong at Geekmas, because everybody, I saw smiles across the board, whether you were a vendor, a participant, or just a person who came to the convention. There were just smiles across the board. So
a lot of learning from your mistakes. And my first year was a hot mess of a mistake. I freely admit it. My first public year. Geekmas has been going on since the inception of Fanatics and the Fan, but on a much smaller scale. It started out as just an invite to a Christmas party. Following year is another invite to a Christmas party. The following year was another invite to a Christmas party, but in a much bigger location. And then that very next year, I'm like, all right, I got 50 people in my house. Y'all can't be in my house no more. So, it's time to do that someplace else.
Sure.
And everything from the young lady that runs registration for me this last year to the gentleman that helped MC something I normally do that I turned over to you, and you crushed it as a favor, as a guest, not as a part of staff, just so nobody get confused. And the chemistry that we have, that's one of the biggest compliments I got since you've joined Fanatics and the Fan show, was the chemistry that you and I have is as entertaining as anything we talk about.
Sure. We have a unique banter about us that I do enjoy as well.
Yeah.
But okay, I do have one final question before we start to wrap things up.
Fire away.
Now, you know, you as yourself said, you know, you were kind of slower to the game, but man,
Yes.
did you crush it after the fact with all of these skills. So I wanted to ask you this. A lot of people watching might be in your same boat. They're a closeted nerd that are worried about taking that next step. What advice would you give them, being somebody who were in their shoes or was in their shoes? What kind of advice would you give them to maybe, you know, take the leap earlier than you did?
To take the leap. Okay, first of all, if you're watching this and you're already made that leap.
Fair.
You're watching this in the private of your home because of our current situation. You're still making that leap because I didn't have these opportunities. Talk to me or Zach. You'll see us at a Visioncon or convention. Talk to people like me or Zach. Talk to Care Springfield. Talk to Heroes Alliance or Ultimate Cosplay League. Go physically talk to these people and say, hey, I'm a closeted nerd. Problem solved. Because all of the people, and Zach, you can testify to this, all the people I just mentioned, not name dropping, that I just mentioned, will support you 1,000%. And if we are not the genre of your choice, we will know that person.
Sure.
I mean, you can talk to Philip about video games. You can talk to Chris in 1984 about video games. He's well-knowledged in that. We can talk to Kira about anime and the things that they do. I think one of the best parts about being who I am is that I know all of these people. Not that I'm one of them. Not that you've used the word figurehead. I don't even consider myself figurehead. I know the figureheads. I'm friends with the figurehead. I can call a Michael Decker from Heroes Alliance and say, hey, my costume has not turned out well. And he'll point me in the right direction. You know? As a matter of fact, that happened recently, and you and your girlfriend pointed me in the right direction. Don't tell her I said that. She'll get all big-headed and become a thing.
Nah. But, I mean, I would always consider you a figurehead, Hawk. But the last thing I wanted to talk about real quick before we wrap things up is Hawk. Everybody watching this, they obviously love you. Or if they haven't, then they will soon.
I obviously love you.
How can they get more from you? Kind of, you know, where can they find you at? Where can they find your work at?
Ironically, everywhere.
Yeah.
Fanatics and the Fan on Twitter, Fanatics and the Fan on Instagram, Fanatics and the Fan on Facebook. We're really not that hard to find. Fanatics and the Fan on YouTube. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It has links sending you to the Visioncon channel. I love Visioncon. I don't put any as of all the things we do over the course of the year, go traveling and doing other shows, I put all of my effort into 2 shows, Visioncon and Geekmas, because they are my loves. Mm-hmm. Being a part of the virtual Visioncon this year, can I tell a story about this year's virtual Visioncon? The best thing ever. So you recall when you guys came to me and said, let's go ahead and record the Fanatics and the Fan.
100%.
I did a regular Visioncon show, and it was weird and awkward and uncomfortable. Brandon calls me the very next day, hey, we're going to go ahead and just put you in your normal time slot. Didn't even think about it. And honestly, I didn't even notice, really. So when it comes and we're live, and I'm like, oh, crap, we're in our normal spot. It wouldn't even feel like a Visioncon if we weren't on the main stage in our normal spot. And and then on the main stage in our normal spot is not our normal show. But it's my absolute #1 favorite show of the year because it's not about us. It's about us talking to our fans and talking to other nerds to bring out their nerddom. Nothing. I mean, it's my hardest show because I don't be on the main stage. I don't be on the mic. I'm out running around holding the mic for other people to talk. And it's a little awkward at first. It's like a nervous first date. But the smiles on the fans when they realize if they talk to us, we will talk back to them and they can express what they're thinking. And I have learned so much from doing it? What are the questions? And I'll ask you, and you will struggle to answer because it's a hard question. I remember one of the questions we asked on the main stage at the last Visioncon Fanatics and the Fan Panel. What's your absolute favorite episode of your favorite anime? Just one. And everybody in the audience had an answer. So I'll ask you, Zach, what is your absolute number one favorite episode of one anime?
Of one anime? Oh, it's got to be probably in Naruto. I would say, let's say probably the final episode of the Pain arc.
There you go. That's a Fanatic and a Fan question. A very good answer. That's the kind of thing that we do on Fanatics and the Fan, and I absolutely love it. So you can find us at Instagram at Fanatics and the Fan. We do a cosplay of the day every day, which you have been a big help with. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on popgoestheculture.com on that network because they are an amazing partnership with us. You can also find us on Facebook where we do our Wait and Watch Party Wednesday every Wednesday. We do game night on Fridays. Get all kinds of wonderful things that we do. We do a Fanatics and the Fan on YouTube at least once a month. We even got a Meet the Fanatic thing coming up real soon that you're going to be a part of that you have no idea. It's going to be absolutely amazing. And you still have one of the best nerd backdrops I've ever seen.
Oh, you continue. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been episode 2 of Visioncon Spotlight. Before we wrap things up, Hawk, any last words to the folks watching at home?
Stay nerdy, my friends.
Couldn't say it better myself. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been episode 2 of Visioncon Spotlight. Make sure to tune in next time for episode 3. But until next time, I, of course, am your host, Zach Wilson. But much more importantly, this has been my special guest, Hawk Holman. You guys stay safe out there. And always remember, guys, that life's better when you have friends to share it with.